President Mahmoud Abbas. During the meeting, Israeli newspaper Haaretz says Olmert and Abbas spoke directly by phone. Our correspondent in Jerusalem, Paula Sleer, joins me now. Paula, what is the significance of this reported meeting?
Well, Marina, what we understand is that this meeting took place on Sunday in the West Bank city of Ramallah. It was between two senior aides of the Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, his political advisor and his bureau chief, and the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. The meeting centered, we are told, around three primary issues. The first issue was the future possible meeting between the Israeli Premier and the Palestinian President. The second issue regarded the kidnapping of Gilad Shalit. That was the Israeli soldier, the first of three, who was kidnapped back in June. It is still believed that he is being held in the Gaza Strip. One of the three militant groups holding him is Hamas's armed wing. And the third issue on the agenda was the upcoming visit next month of the U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice to the region. We are also being told that during that meeting, the Palestinian president spoke via telephone with the Israeli Premier Ehud Olmert. Now, Palestinian sources have said that the meeting was extremely positive. They have said that the fact that these two senior Israeli aides made the trip to Ramallah sends out a very encouraging sign. But perhaps what's not so encouraging is we're also being told that Abbas asked Olmert for negotiations to start over the release of Marwan Barghouti, and that these negotiations be independent of any kind of prisoner exchange over Gilad Shalit, the kidnapped Israeli soldier. Marwan Barghouti is a controversial figure here. He is currently being held in an Israeli prison where he is serving 5 life sentences for the murder of 5 Israelis. And we're also being told that Olmert has said that there will be no talks over his release until Gilad Shalit, the kidnapped soldier, is back safely on Israeli territory.
Now, Paula, what likelihood is there of talks moving forward without the inclusion of Hamas and the Palestinian Prime Minister Ismail Haniyeh?
Marina, at this stage it seems as if it's very unlikely. Israel has made it quite clear that it will not have anything to do with the Hamas leaders, whom it terms a militant, terrorist organization. So on the one hand, these talks between Israel and the Palestinian president need to move ahead without the involvement of Hamas. Israel won't agree to that. But on the other hand, the Palestinian population and the Hamas leaders say that they do have a right to be represented and a right to put forward the interests of the Palestinian people. For some time now, the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has been trying to secure a Palestinian government of national unity. And a week and a half ago, when he met with the U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, he said that those talks had deadlocked. And what we expect him to hear anytime soon from the Palestinian president is what steps he's now going to take to create a new Palestinian government of national unity. But it's worth pointing out that Israel has made it quite clear that Mahmoud Abbas is their man, that for any kind of negotiations that Israel will entertain with the Palestinian population, those negotiations have to be headed by the Palestinian president. The question is just how he's going to engage Israel in discussion while at the same time keeping control over the Hamas government.
Now, in a German TV interview, Olmert raised some questions over Israel's own nuclear capability.
Iran openly, explicitly and publicly threatens to write Israel off the map. Can you say that this is the same level when they are aspiring to have nuclear weapons as America, France, Israel, Russia?
Now, what is the reaction to this in Israel, and what diplomatic significance does it have?
Well, it certainly has created a bit of an uproar here in Israel. Most of today's newspapers are leading with the headline, what they refer to as the nuclear slip of the tongue. Almost by inference, the Israeli Premier Ehud Olmert admitting that Israel has nuclear capability. Israel has always been ambiguous on this point, which doesn't detract from the fact that most senior military analysts do believe that it has nuclear capability. But the opposition today has said that these comments by the Israeli Premier Ehud Olmert must result in his resignation. Although on the other hand, we're hearing comments from the country's defense minister, Amir Peretz, coming to his rescue and saying that Israel's ambiguous nuclear policy has not changed. Most analysts here, however, do believe that these comments by the Israeli premier will not in any way significantly alter Israel's diplomatic standing. The Israeli premier is on a European trip. He has been to Germany, he's on his way to Italy and possibly the United Kingdom. He's really urging the international community to stop Iran's nuclear program. In Germany, he met with Angela Merkel, and there he asked for economic sanctions to be imposed on Iran for Germany to stop having any kind of economic ties with the country. So over the next few days, we do expect to hear more and more comments from the Israeli premier urging the international community to halt any kind of interaction with Iran.
All right, Paula Sleer, thank you very much indeed for this update. A new UN draft resolution on Iran's nuclear enrichment could be adopted by the end of this month, and that's according to Russia's ambassador to the UN, Vitaly Churkin. His comments came after a